Today, I'm going to be talking about some of the things that you need to know if you're going to be planning to film on the RED Komodo. To make this more structural, I'm going to be breaking this down into things you should do for pre-production, production, and post-production. This camera is a cinema camera and should be treated as such. And action! Good. Biggest one, battery. You need power and a lot of it. What a lot of people don't tell you is that those small Canon batteries, they won't get you anywhere. They probably would last you up to an hour, depending on how you're using the camera, or the frame rate and how long the camera has been running for. And once you start to add accessories, that power goes down really fast. We started using the V-mount 99 from Small Rig, and I think now we probably have like a 155, and even that just gets us about 5 hours. Eventually, you realize that you need more power to be able to run the camera and plug in all the other accessories that you want to use to monitor the feed, to the transmission and the focus and everything else. This camera consumes a lot of power. It has a lot of power draw, and you would be wise to prepare for that. I don't think people truly understand how much this thing consumes power until you start to use it. Even Tony, who owns the camera, I don't think he really knew that until we started using the Komodo and it became an issue. So remember to get batteries. Next is storage. Now, straight away, I just want to say that this camera is not like Sony or the other mirrorless cameras. Storage is a whole other cost in itself. This camera has two 500 gigabytes cards, and depending on whatever format that we're filming in, the amount of data that we can capture is limited to that before doing a DIT swap. Let me explain. For example, if we're filming in Red RAW, high quality on a commercial, each 500 gigabyte card can only get 30 minutes in total. We only get 30 minutes. I know. They've come out with a new type of card that you can use with the Komodo X, but I'm not sure if it's actually compatible with the 6K OG. Just to be able to accommodate the fact that you would need more space if you're filming long content in RED RAW HQ, it would be in your best interest to get those extra storage. Now, they're not the cheapest things on the market, but I'm assuming that if you're buying a RED camera, you're willing to pay a little bit of more money to get the right storage that you need. There are recording tips and tricks that you could potentially use to be able to get more out of the storage, whether that's like downsizing on the quality of the RED RAW that you're filming in, but I'll get to that in a few minutes. Now, let's go to the production side of things. This means on the day of the shoot. The first tip that I have for you is to expose the RAW as you would your final image. Now, everybody talks about the quality and the greatness of RED RAW, and that in itself is great. It's good. But that should not excuse you for not properly exposing and finalizing your image in camera. The best practice is still to do everything right in camera so that the amount of work that you have to do in post-production is very, very minimal. Take some time to understand the tally light system so that you can save yourself time in post-production. The system is RED's way of sort of monitoring exposure, where you have those red, green, and blue channels that you can always see to know what is clipping or what is underexposed in your shot. If there is one commandment that you should follow, it is never overexpose your image past clipping point. Especially in the Komodo, just don't do it. Don't, people, don't do it. Another thing that will really improve your experience is to get an external monitor. Yes, the monitor on the RED camera is in a way better than most of what you have on most mirrorless cameras, but if you're going to be using this thing at a level that I anticipate you want to be aiming for, I think that you should get an external monitor for these reasons. One, you will be able to better frame and compose your shots. The bigger the monitor screen that you were looking at, the bigger you see the image, the better you're able to see your composition. Two, false color and waveforms on the external monitor will help you ultimately dial in the exposure to your taste. Now, for me, specifically, I own the Small HD 7-inch Indy 7 monitor, and it's been great. I've only ever used Small HD monitors. I started with the 5.5-inch OLED and went to the 7-inch from that. For me, I see Small HD monitors as sort of like an investment, and I do not recommend any other type of monitors to people because this is just the only one that I've used and that I can trust to replicate the image from the camera sensor in a crisp and sharp way. Also, if you're filming at those T.1 point somethings, people, have you had a case where on the back screen of the camera, it's like, yeah, it's in focus. And then you bring this into your computer on a big screen and you're like, oh my God, it's focusing on the tip of the eyelash or the nose and you miss the eyes. This is what a good monitor can do for you. Now, I should also still say that even with this good monitor, you can still miss focus. Actually, you will, but your chances are now reduced. So don't beat yourself up if it happens. The third thing that I want you to consider is to know that the SDI problem is real. Do not fry your SDI. This is one of the most common Komodo user problems. If you go on Reddit forums or Facebook groups or whatever, people complain about their SDI. It's a workflow issue. 12G SDI has a lot of current passing through it. If you don't unplug or connect it well, it will burn the SDI ports. Now, there's a right order to doing this so that you don't fry your unit. First, mount your battery to your V-mount plate, then plug in your monitor, transmitter to the battery, then power on the camera. Then you plug the SDI into the Komodo as the final step. If it's the other way around and you need to remove the setup, unplug the SDI first from the Komodo. Basically, let everything turn on before plugging in the SDI to the Komodo, and unplug the SDI first before turning the camera off. Actually, I'm just gonna put the right order up on here on screen and you can take it. No, I'm not gonna do that. Not at that. And lastly, in terms of production, the last thing is to film in the right RED container. Like I said, there's LQ, MQ, and HQ. I prefer to use MQ for client work where it's a commercial. For interviews and like content creation type of materials, I prefer the LQ because in that way, we're gonna be able to get the longest runtime and still get somewhat of a good quality. So if you're doing an interview, for example, and you have to film for an hour, the LQ is your best option because it'll run for about 2.5 hours, which is really good. And for narrative work where I need a lot of grading or anything that requires extensive post-production work, I film in high quality because takes like this are not usually very long, which is why we also have 2 cards. When we're filming on one, we can dump the footage from the second one and swap it out later. Finally, post-production. You need to understand the RED color workflow. RED's new image processing pipeline unlocks the full potential of every pixel. Let me explain. RED introduced the new IPP2 enhancement, which offers a completely overhauled workflow experience and encompasses all of the steps in the image capture process, from raw sensor data to final image output. Basically, it means you can get more color and information from your camera this way. And I prefer this over the previous one because IPP2 now includes a better management of challenging colors that has plagued this camera in the past. There's also improvements in the shadow details, smoother highlight roll-off, more accurate mid-tone hues. My light went off. I'm gonna go on. I don't care. It's YouTube. I'm gonna go on. This new workflow is also just simpler and more intuitive to work in, which is a standardized color space and gamma, I believe, HDR included. Now, I won't lie. The name also sounds cool, IPP2. For me specifically, I edit my videos in Final Cut Pro, so I've really taken time to understand RED's workflow for Final Cut. Now, if you want me to make a tutorial about how I color manage RED RAW files, leave me a comment and I will do that in the next video. I think for me, I've been lucky enough to have worked with this camera for quite a number of projects, from commercials down to narrative films. This camera really is all that people say it is, but it is also not. And I really just wanted to share with you some practical things that will help you upgrade your usability of this camera. So if you pick it up straight up fire, the beauty of this thing is in how well or how much you can rig it up. Also, let me point out that most of what's on our Komodo is from Tilta and Small Rig, but you can use any brand that you are comfortable with. With that being said, if you have any questions, let's chat in the comments or on social media. And if you like this content, people, you want to see more, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and do all the fun things. I'll see you the next time when I can see you. Have fun and keep creating. Bye.